that we're going to get some new revelation out of our good friend Noah today. So go with me to the book of Genesis, the beginning, chapter 7, and we're going to read verses 17 through 24. Genesis chapter 7, starting at verse 17, it says, "The flood continued for 40 days on the earth." Now, if you don't know the story, I know most of us do. This was a time when God saw what was going on in the earth.
Yeah.
And he was disappointed at all the wickedness that was in the hearts of men.
Yeah.
And so at this point, God said, you know what? I got to hit the reset button.
Yeah.
Because this isn't what I had planned. This is not what I intended to happen on earth. So it's time for me to just wash it clean. You ever get a stain? I'm wearing white right now. If we were taking communion right now, I'd be all messed up because as clumsy as I am, and all of a sudden I would have a stain right here, and there's nothing I could do but just take this shirt off and wash it clean. Start all over. And so this is what God was doing. He said, there are too many stains on the earth that I created. And it's time for me to just wash it clean. And so that's when he called on Noah and said, get ready. Come on, we talked about this morning. I need you to get in position. It's about to rain. Noah probably looked around. Come on, we know what that region looks like. It's a hot and dry region. Noah looked around and said, rain? God, are you serious? Noah, I need you to get in position and expect what I'm about to do. Noah, being the obedient person that he is, he started getting in position and he built an ark and he followed all of God's instruction. And all of a sudden, those who mocked him, those who laughed at him said, man, what are you doing? Why are you building a boat on dry land? You must be crazy. It began to rain. And so here it is in verse 17. It rained so hard that it began to flood. And verse 17 said, the flood continued for 40 days on the earth. The waters increased and bore up the ark, and it rose high above the earth. The waters prevailed and increased greatly on the earth, and the ark floated on the face of the waters. Verse 19, and the waters prevailed so mightily on the earth that all the high mountains under the whole heaven were covered. That's a lot of water. Yeah. Verse 20, here it is again. The waters prevailed above the mountains, covering them 15 cubits deep. Verse 21, and all flesh died that moved on the earth. Birds, livestock, beasts, all swimming creatures that swarm on the earth, and all mankind. Verse 22, everything on the dry land in whose nostrils was the breath of life died. He blotted out every living thing that was on the face of the ground, man and animals and creeping things and birds of the heavens. They were blotted out from the earth. Only Noah was left, and those who were with him in the ark. And last verse, verse 24. And once again, and the waters prevailed on the earth 150 days. So here's what I need you to understand about this story, because we just heard it 3 separate times that the waters prevailed on the earth. So that means that the water took over. The water took over places that it had never taken over before. The water had taken over the entire earth. The water had prevailed. And not only was the water in foreign places that it had never been before, not only was that, but it was so strong that it changed the entire landscape of the earth. Water that strong changed the entire landscape. And see, while I was listening, as God told me this week, just to open my eyes, watch and listen, I came across an old story from ABC News, and you can look it up. This is no lie. ABC News did a story in 2012. Did a story that showed that there was evidence of the Great Flood. This is not just some mythical thing that's in Scripture, but ABC News did a story that's showing that there's factual evidence of a great flood. And so there are mountains that surround the Black Sea region today that show evidence of erosion by a strong force of water. I don't know about you, but all you got to do is Google a picture of the area around the Black Sea. You have this big sea, but around it is desert area. It's hot. It's dry. But there's evidence on the tops of these mountains where there was erosion from a strong force of water. We're not talking about rain. We're not talking about snow. We're talking about a strong rush of water. And so it is believed, archaeologists believe that the strong force of water was, check this out, 200 times greater than the strength of Niagara Falls. I've never been to Niagara Falls, but it's one of the places that I want to go to. It's one of my bucket list places. But I'm a little bit of a documentary nerd, and I love watching National Geographic Channel and also the Smithsonian Channel. So I've seen a lot of historic and factual things about the Niagara Falls. And the water flows down the falls so strong that it powers the entire northeast region. That's where they get their electricity from. And so this force of water in this area at the time of the Great Flood was so strong, it was 200 times as strong as Niagara Falls. Now here's where the nerd in me, once I heard about this, now the nerd in me kicks in. I'm a little bit of a nerd. I think my daughter, with her being a proud nerd, it kind of rubbed off on me. And I thought I was a nerd back in the day, but now I'm more of a nerd because I will dig deep into research and stuff. Look, I just told y'all for the past 3 weeks how I Googled the lifespan of a gnat. Come on, that should show how much of a nerd that I am. But my nerd antennas start kicking into high gear, and here's what I discovered. According to a number of marine geologists, the Black Sea was a freshwater lake, a small freshwater lake, about 7,000 years ago. But that was before, and this is what scientists say, but that was before a catastrophic rise in the Mediterranean Sea that caused the entry of salt water into the lake. Now that lake that was once a freshwater lake is now a salty sea. I want you to hear the difference. Lake, sea. There's a difference, okay? And so now it's a salty sea. So what? And so then my nerdiness started kicking in a little bit more. I said, well, what made it salty? What makes fresh water salty? You can go to any beach in this country, West Coast, down south in the Gulf Coast, on the East Coast, you get in the water, you go, salty. Salt water. So what makes the oceans and these seas so salty? And I discovered this. It's the runoff water from dry land. That's what makes the seas salty. So as the snow in the Sierra, it's a lot of it up there right now. As that begins to melt in the springtime, it's going to flow, it's going to run off the land, it's going to run off from the streets and houses and us, come on. And it flows into our rivers, it flows into our streams, and eventually flows into our oceans. So I want you to think about the next time you go to a beach, the reason why that water is salty. It might freak you out a little bit, that this is because of the dirty earth. The dirty earth is now flowing into the ocean, and it makes the ocean salty. And so it is also believed, now I'm telling you, my nerdness was kicking into high gear. It is also believed that the ark, after 40 days of rain and torrential rain, and then another 150 days of just drifting. Come on, some of us in your life, have you ever just drifted? Just gone through the motions, just letting life just take you here and there, just because you just felt weakened and just beaten and bad. I'm pretty sure this is how Noah and everyone on the ark felt after 40 days of torrential rain, storms, couldn't even see where they were going. At this point, the rain is over. We can't see land. Let's just drift because I'm tired. I'm weakened. I'm battered. I'm already tired from having to build this ark, but now I had to struggle through some storms in my life. And so now I just want to drift. And so for 150 days, Noah drifted. But after 150 days, it came upon land at the shore of what we now know as the Black Sea. And so the Black Sea was once a small lake, like I said, but after the flood, it became a large sea that is over 7,200 feet deep. 7,200 feet deep. And the Black Sea is one of the only bodies of water where the top half, it cannot even mix with the bottom half. There's no intersecting. There's a separation between the top half of the waters and the bottom half. And here's the reason why. Because on the bottom half, there is no oxygen circulating. No oxygen circulating. So what does that mean? That means if there's no oxygen circulating, without oxygen, that means there's no light. Hence the name, the Black Sea. There's no light. That nothing can live. The marine biologist said there's no living creature that can survive and live below a certain depth in the Black Sea. Because there's no oxygen. And so they're like, well, can't we just send a submarine down to see what's down there? Can't we just, maybe put a camera with a flashlight? They can't even do that because it is so dark, because there's no oxygen. It is so dark that light doesn't even emanate. Light doesn't even reflect through. That you can shine a flashlight at the bottom of the Black Sea and you'll still get nothing. Because there's no light. There's no life. And there's no air. And so today the water level of the Black Sea remains the same. At the top, the water level remains the same all year long. Because there's an absence of any high tides or any low tides. And this gives the sea no fluctuation in the water level. And so it keeps it calm and serene all year long. The Black Sea has become a tourist destination because people can swim in this huge sea up to a certain depth and not have to worry about any waves, not have to worry about any undertow or anything like that, because there's nothing underneath that is causing a disruption. And so the water is able to just sit calmly all year round. And so what once caused the landscape to forever be changed, we know that there was a strong rush of water flowing through the area. So what had caused the landscape of that area to forever be changed can no longer occur in the same place. And so this fact aligns perfectly to what God said in his covenant in Genesis 8. Because God made a covenant after the storm was over. In Genesis 8, chapter 8, verses 20 and 22, he said this to Noah. He said, then Noah built an altar to the Lord. After the storms were over and he was back on dry land, he said, then Noah built an altar to the Lord and took some of every clean animal and some of every clean bird and offered burnt offerings on the altar. And when the Lord smelled the pleasing aroma, the Lord said in his heart, I will never again curse the ground because of man. For the intention of man's heart is evil from his youth. Neither will I ever strike down every living creature as I have done. While the earth remains, come on, y'all got to get this, seed time and harvest, cold and heat, summer and winter, day and night shall not cease. Right. Seed, I highlighted that. Seed time and harvest time shall not cease. Doesn't matter what time of the year. Doesn't even matter if it's wintertime or summertime or spring, fall. It doesn't matter. Your time for planting seeds will never cease. It would always be the season of right now to plant your seeds. It will always be the season of right now to reap and harvest. God said, what I've done in the past, I've now cleaned the slate. Right. It is now clean for you, and the ground is right for you to reap a harvest. The ground is right for you to plant seeds that were once dormant. Seed time, harvest time shall not cease. Amen. And he continued in the next chapter. Let's go to Genesis chapter 9, verse 11. In Genesis chapter 9, verse 11, he said this, I will establish my covenant with you, that never again shall all flesh be cut off by the waters of the flood. And never again shall there be a flood to destroy the earth. And so God basically said, what happened over the 40 days and the 40 nights, and what happened the additional 150 days, that won't happen again. Why? Because it was no longer necessary. It was no longer necessary for God to wipe out the earth, to just wipe it clean again. That was no longer necessary because the things that separated man from God were now washed away. Come on. That's why there's no life at the bottom of the Black Sea. All the wickedness, all the things that were not of God, God washed it all away and it became the runoff. Come on. The runoff into the bottom of the sea. That's why that sea is now so salty. That's why there's no life at the bottom of the sea. That's why there's not even light. So we don't even know what is at the bottom of the sea because we cannot see it. God said it's not necessary no more for me to wipe off there because it's already been washed clean. I've already done away with the wickedness in the world. And so now at this time, your seed time and your harvest time will never cease again. God was saying, but by making that covenant, he was basically saying, hey, your time is right now. Yeah. Life Words Church, your time is right now. What seeds are you planting right now? Don't wait. Don't you have to buy no almanac to tell you when to plant seeds. Come on. The time is right now. Yeah. The time is right now. You don't have to buy an almanac to find out when is the right time to pull the fruit from the tree. The time is right now. It is the time right now for our harvest. And now, Life Words Church, you're probably thinking, okay, I get that, Pastor Trey, but what does this have to do with me? What does this have to do with the church? Where are you really going with all of this, Pastor Trey? I want you to get this. It wasn't the floods that changed the landscape of that region. It wasn't even the torrential rains. I mean, here in California, I would love for us to get 40 days of rain because we need it, don't we? We need it, but it wasn't even the rains that caused this change of the landscape. It was the waves. It was the waves that changed the landscape. When we go to the Grand Canyon, one of my most favorite destinations to go visit, and I remember, Unc, you took me when I was a teenager, my first time to see the Grand Canyon. I'd never forgotten it, and I still like to go to this day. It is probably one of the most beautiful places on earth. But it would look nothing like it looks now if it weren't for the waves. Because it's a fact. We all know that little Colorado River that flows at the bottom of the Grand Canyon was once just a force of water flowing through that area to just cut through these mountains. And now we have one of the most beautiful places on earth. It was because of the waves. It wasn't because of the rain. It wasn't because of the floods, because when floods happen, the floods recede. We may end up wet. We may have a little water damage, but the landscape remains the same. It takes a force of wind. I'm sorry, not a force of wind, but a force of water, a force of waves to change the landscape. Waves are one of the most powerful things in nature. You ever saw a video of a tsunami? I know they had one, I think, over in Thailand or Sri Lanka a few years back. And the videos just show that there was an earthquake hundreds of miles out in the ocean. And because there was this disruption hundreds of miles away, it created waves. And you could see people not even feeling the earthquake, not even knowing there was an earthquake. But when they looked out at the distance, they said that water doesn't look like it normally looks. Right. That water looks a little different. Yeah. For some reason, the horizon just looks a little bit higher than it normally is right about now. Normally, we can see the sun, but right now it's covering the sun. Those waves seem to be pretty high. And you can see people, even though the waves were still miles away, people started getting ready. People started running, started taking up shelter, started going into high places because of what was coming. And then the video, if you continue watching, you see the waves come upon land. And you see these structures, brick houses. You see just strong, steady buildings washed away by a rush of waves. And so I started researching. Natasha and I, some of you know, last month we went to Los Angeles for a digital marketing conference, and we got a lot of information. That's why I'm so excited about where we're going on our digital platforms. But we went to this conference, and the first thing, we got to our table, And they had a bunch of swag for us. They had gift bags and all kind of stuff. But there was this little button that they gave to everybody in the room. And that little button, it was just a simple little button. I got it on my book bag now, and I won't take it off. And it said, make waves. And that stuck with us. We started talking about this button for the next 8 hours. We were talking about this button. And so when I got home, I started doing some research on waves. And I want to share with you the definition of waves. It's a verb. Waves is a disturbance or variation that transfers energy progressively from place to place in an organized way. You got to get that last part, because that's key. A wave is a disturbance. We got it on the screen. A wave is a disturbance or variation that transfers energy progressively from place to place in an organized way. See, when you go to the beach and you look at the waves, and we see the waves crashing on shore, but the waves never run into each other. One wave comes in, it goes out. Here comes the next. It's in it's almost in a rhythm. It looks like a dance. As one goes in, one goes out. It's a beautiful thing to see, because it happens in such an organized way. And waves can only happen where there's an unseen disturbance. There's something happening that we cannot see that causes waves. You can even make a little small wave in a bathtub. You drop that soap in that bathtub, waves. What was once calm, what was once undisturbed by just a drop of a pebble into a river or a lake, you have changed the composition, the makeup of that lake or river forever. The landscape of most of the earth would not look as it does if it wasn't for these unseen disturbances. Wow. Something needs to happen below the surface in order to be moved. You see, we can be, and I've been on a few cruise ships, and those ships, even when they're anchored, you can still feel them bobbing up and down. The reason for that is because something is happening beneath the surface that is causing waves to move this huge and massive ship up and down, up and down. There's something that's happening below the surface. It can be an earthquake, or it can be just what is called a transfer of energy. Something is moving below the surface that we cannot see that causes waves to happen. Something unseen to the world needs to happen in order for you to change the landscape of the world. Come on, something unseen needs to be happening while you're at home. When you're praying, that's something that's unseen, that's happening, that the world doesn't see. The vision that you have to make a difference in this world, someone doesn't see you at home writing out your vision, studying that thing, planning that thing out. Someone doesn't see the fact that you have a vision to write a book. They don't see you just focusing, typing word after word, night after night. They don't see that. It's unplanned. It's unseen to the eye, but to you, it's causing a disruption. It's causing a disturbance. You know that what you're doing, people cannot see it now. It may take a month, it may take a week, it may take a couple years, but eventually what we do now is going to create a wave. Life Word Church, what are we doing right now that's going to create waves in this community? What are we doing that's unseen? By us coming together on Sunday in, Sunday out, worshiping together, by us having meetings, planning for the way that we're going to impact people, we're creating an unseen disturbance below the surface that's going to eventually make waves. Here's another fact about waves. I think we got this on the screen as well. Another fun fact about waves. For most of its life, a wave is not a thing. It's not a noun. It's not a thing, but it's actually an event. A small part of a large-scale transfer of energy from one point to another. See, when we look at waves, the wave is just the final result of a much greater movement of energy. You see, when people see the blessings in your life, That's just the final result of a much greater transfer of energy. Come on, I need you to get this right now. When we talked about today, when Frank talked about his uncle leaving the hospital, when things were looking bleak, that is just the final result of a transfer of energy that has happened. When we shared the good news a few weeks ago that we are the recipients of a $75,000 grant, you were just seeing the final result of a transfer of energy that we've been praying for, that we've been working at for over a year. What is happening in your life and the blessings that God has for you, the world is just going to see the final result. They don't see the transfer of energy. There's a transfer of energy happening right now for you. Don't give up right now, because God is trying to transfer some energy to you. My sister, I want to give you something. I'm transferring energy to you. You better hold on and wait for it. Don't just because you don't see it on the surface. Come on. Doesn't mean something's not happening underneath. There's a transfer of energy happening. The wave is just that final result. Think about what can happen when we start to transfer energy from one place to another. See, we build a lot of energy here at LifeWords Church, but what if we began to transfer that energy to the community? Right now across the street, they got something going on with food trucks. I might even go get me a gyro after service. I saw a food truck out there. But what if we were able to take the energy that we're building here and transfer that out there? Come on. What if we were able to take the energy that we're building in here and transfer it out into the homeless community? What if we were able to take the energy that we're building here and go into the schools where they sometimes say, nope, you're a church, we cannot have you in here. But what if we were able to be such a mighty force, a mighty flow of water that we're able to bust through locked doors and transfer energy into our schools, transfer energy into our jails? Come on, right now Sacramento County is just going to spend over $1 billion building a new jail. I see that as an opportunity. While some people complain, saying, why do we need more jails? Why do we need to spend so much money on it? I see it as an opportunity for LifeWords Church to transfer energy into a place that was meant to confine people, but now it's going to be a place where people can find freedom. Come on, that's the transfer of energy that we can do, the waves that we can make. What kind of waves can you make in your life? How can you transfer energy from one place to another and make waves? So today I want to share with you the new vision for LifeWords Church for 2023. LifeWords Church, get ready to make waves. This you're going to hear us say this not only for 2023, but for a good while. We're going to make waves. And just like the waves during the great flood that prevailed, that went into places where waves never went before, we are going to go into places where the church has never been before. Come on, we're going to make waves in this season, and it starts with our youth. With us receiving this grant, we're going to be able to make an impact on our youth and talk about things that the church isn't talking about. This is how we make waves. Yeah. See, in this grant that we got, we are required to make sure that we're talking to our youth and our young adults to prevent them from a life of drug use, alcohol use, and yes, even marijuana use. Because contrary to popular opinion, marijuana isn't good for you. That's right. Marijuana is killing our youth. Yeah. The consumption of marijuana for recreational purposes is tearing. I got a good friend right now in Georgia, one of our closest friends. He spent over 2 decades as a captain in the Fulton County Fire Department in Atlanta. And I once had a conversation with him about fire and how people perish, because he had some horrible stories of people perishing in fires. Thank you so much. I can feel the beads of sweat on my head. But he told me a story about how people think that when people perish in fires, it's because they get burned up, that they just burned up. But he said, actually, most people die in fires because of smoke inhalation. That's right. So whatever people are smoking, whatever our young people are smoking, whether it's vape, whether it's marijuana, whether it's a cigarette, whatever it is, you're just causing a slow death. Yeah. But see, the world won't tell our children that. The world just say, oh, do this because it's cherry flavored. Right. We're putting something in it now. Now, look, I've never been a weed smoker or anything like that, but I just know from people that I know who did back in the day that they used to go to the corner with their $5, what they call a nickel bag, and it was just, it sure didn't smell like cherries. But all of a sudden they're lacing it with chemicals now to make it smell good.
Yeah, talk about it.
Make it enticing to young people.
That's right.
We're now seeing billboards all across Sacramento right now. You can't go anywhere in this region and not see a billboard about a dispensary.
That's true.
Now, don't get me wrong. I believe that there are plenty of plants out there, including the cannabis plant, that may have some medicinal purposes to it. But if you have to inhale smoke in order to feel healed, I'm sorry, it's not happening. So we got to start having these conversations as the church. We cannot shy away from these conversations. So I'm sorry, Bishop or Pastor Jamal Bryant at New Birth Church in my old city of Lithonia, Georgia. I'm sorry, but the church is not in the business of selling weed. Come on, we are in the business of taking the weed out of the hands of our young people, and we're going to talk about it. We're also going to make sure that our children's mental health is in proper alignment. Right now, Chanel is in the process of restructuring one of our rooms in our children's area and converting that into a wellness room. A wellness room where people not only, yes, come on, a wellness room where our young people can go and just release whatever is harming them right now. Release the pain that they carry. Release the frustrations that they feel, that maybe they don't think that they can share this with their parents. There's going to be a room available to them with someone who's trained to counsel them, walk them through this journey. We're going to have a wellness room for our young people. And not only for our young people, for anyone who's struggling with their mental health. This is how the church makes waves. We got to talk about the things that are hurting us nowadays. We cannot just tell people that, oh, you just pray about it. Oh, if you just get a little bit more Jesus, then things will be all right. No. God has given us people. He has given us resources to use to make waves in people's lives. We're not going to leave anyone broken, battered, busted, and disgusted in 2023. It's time for us to make waves in people's lives. Life Words Church is here to make waves in people's lives. We're going to go into places where the church has never been before, where we're not welcome. I'm going to step into City Hall every week and be at those meetings. I'm going to step into the state capitol and be there as legislation has passed. I was just invited this week to be on a committee that's going to be a part of making decisions that affect the black community and creates equity in our community. I'm going to make waves. So Life Words Church, you better get on board. We're making waves in this season. It is time to start breaking down what is not pleasing to God. Make waves in 2023.
I know that's right.
This is going to be our marketing ploy too.
Yeah.
Get ready to buy t-shirts.
Yeah.
Get ready to get hats.
Come on.
Get ready to post it on your social media.
Yeah.
Make waves.
Yeah.
When people ask you, what do y'all do there at Life Words Church? We make waves. We make waves. I ain't talking about finger waves. You don't need a wave cap for these kind of waves. But it's because of the disturbance that we're creating here. Come on. I told y'all during our last First Wednesday that I was called controversial. And it hurt me at first to be called controversial. But then I thought about it, and I read the definition of a wave, and it's because there's some type of disturbance that's happening beneath the surface. If I'm causing you to feel a little bit uncomfortable by telling you the truth in love, if that makes you feel uncomfortable, I'm making some waves. Yeah. Come on. If I tell you that drug and alcohol use, even though that they promote it as this fun and great thing, if I tell you that it's wrong for you and I'm telling you in love because I want you to live and not die, I'm making waves. Come on. If I go throughout our homeless camps, and like we will this week, just give out blankets and give them cover. But not only will I just give you this free blanket, I'm going to provide you with some resources. I'm going to pray for you. I'm going to let you know that Jesus loves you. You may not have heard this before. You may not have ever even heard the gospel of Jesus. Or you may have felt dejected by the church because they felt that you felt like they were judging you, that they were pointing fingers at you. I'm going to give you the truth in love. I'm going to make waves. Life Works Church,
Yeah. Come on.
in 2023,
Yes.
will you make waves with me?
Yes.
Will you make waves with me?
Yes. Amen.
It's not a daunting task. It's just deciding to do just like Jesus asked Peter. I just need you to step out the boat.
Come on.
See, that's the thing about Peter. When he saw that Jesus was out there in the ocean and Jesus said, "Come to me," Peter was like, "I can't do it. These waves are too much. These waves are too much for me. They're so strong that it's going to overtake me." He wasn't concerned about the water. He was concerned about the waves, because Peter knew the power of the waves.
Come on now.
If I step out of this boat where there's comfort,
Yeah.
if I step out of this boat where there's peace, if I step out of this boat where I can just rest my head and take a nap, even in the midst of the storm, if I step out of this boat, I may drown,
Yeah.
because of the waves may prevail.
Yeah.
Jesus was trying to tell people, I need you to come get out the boat, because you have the control over these waves. These waves that you see, I created them.
Wow.
It's because that I'm standing here, I cause a disturbance to happen beneath the surface. There's a transition of energy from one place to another that you don't even know what's happening. So Peter, step out of the boat. Step out of the boat, because this is under my control. I made these waves. I'm making the difference. And so when we step out of the boat, know that your Savior, know that Jesus has already made the transfer of energy from him to you.
Come on now.
And now you can make the waves.
Amen.
You control where they shift. You control where they go. And you could go to the worst places in Sacramento and make waves.
Yeah.
You can make a difference.
Yes, Lord.
We can go into our schools. We can go into our government offices and make waves. I want to tell you something about this grant that we're receiving. This is how much of a wave we're making here at Life Works Church. Some of you, if you saw the post I did this week on social media, I shared a little bit about it. But I had a one-on-one meeting with the organization on Monday. And they said, Pastor Trey, we remember about almost a year ago, some of you were there at the wellness walk that we participated in back in the spring. And it was at this wellness walk that I was having conversations with the organization we're partnering with this grant. And we were having a conversation about how do we make a difference in our communities. We see so much going on. We see so much social injustice. We see racism. We see so much division. How do we truly make a difference? And so I told them, I said, you know what? And some of you heard me say this before. I said, you know what? I believe it's because the church has been silent. You see, back in my grandparents' time, and even my parents as well, back in their time, when something happened in the community, when there was an injustice, when there was a social issue happening, people, before they made a decision to march in the streets, before they even made a picket sign, before they protested, before there was even a boycott, they would ask among each other, what did the church say? Because whatever the church has said, that's what we're going to do. That's what we're going to say. Whatever the church is doing, that's what we're going to do. So they went to the church and said, Pastor, church, what do you say in this situation? Well, here's what we're saying. What are we going to do? Here's what we're going to do.
Yeah.
And so they looked to the church for direction. But somehow, over the past generation, that has changed a bit. I think we got to get back to saying, well, what is the church saying about this situation? And whatever the church is saying, that's what we're going to say. We're going to walk in lockstep with the church. Whatever the church is doing, that's what we're going to do. And so I shared that story with them. And so in our meeting this week, they said, Pastor Trey, your words have stuck with us all year. And so they were the organization that is giving the grant funds. They were asking, well, what will you title? What's the title of this project that you're going on with this grant funding? They told the organization the name of the grant. I mean, the name of the project is What Does the Church Say?
Wow.
Project What Does the Church Say? And so something that I just told them casually, it stuck with them. I made a wave back 9 months ago. And we're just seeing the final result. We're just seeing the final result of that little pebble I dropped in the water over 9 months ago. Now we're seeing the final result of that.
Amen.
And so all across the Sacramento region, there are 3 other churches involved in this project. Each church is going to be called Project What Does the Church Say?
Amen.
And that came from Life Words Church.
Amen.
So we're making waves, Life Words family.
Come on.
We're making waves, and these waves that are being created are going into every corner of Sacramento. Not just Natomas, but it's going into Del Paso Heights. Not just North Highlands, but it's also going into Oak Park. Not just in Roseville where it's nice and pretty, but it's also going into South Sac as well. We're making waves in every single corner of the city. Doesn't matter what you look like. It doesn't matter what your financial status is. It doesn't matter what you've been through or where you're going. We're going to make waves in people's lives in 2023. So I need you to get ready. I need you to get ready. Get in position. And just like the waves of the great flood that changed the landscape, forever changed the landscape of that region, Life Words family, we will forever change the landscape of this region that we call Sacramento County.
That's right.
Let's get ready.
Amen.
I'm done here. I'm done here, but I just want to encourage you. Over these next 2 weeks, while we're not having services, I want you to start thinking, and maybe even take time to journal. If you don't journal, I want to challenge you in this next year to start journaling. Yes. Men as well. There's some things that we need to get out as well, and that we need to start putting on paper. So I want us all to journal. And the first journal entry, I want you to start just asking yourself and start writing down the answers. How am I going to make waves? What is my position to make waves? And just allow God to start giving you some answers on how you're going to make waves. I believe that some of you are going to receive some answers. Some of you will be put in position to make some waves even before the new year rings. I'm believing that everyone in this room and everyone watching online, you don't have to be just here in Sacramento. We have members in 5 different states. Come on, how are you going to make waves in Georgia? Shaka and your family, how are you going to make waves in South Carolina? Family in Florida, Tallahassee, Florida, Port St. Joe, Florida. How are you going to make waves in Florida? You need some waves in Florida. As we say, Florida is going to Florida and Texas is going to Texas. But Texas, we have members in Texas. Texas, how are you going to make waves? Utah. Come on. Minister Mai, you know all about Utah. The struggle is real. The struggle is real in Utah. But Utah, how are you going to make waves? In a place where the waves that we're trying to make, there's a force. There's a force that is preventing any wave from happening in that area. But how do we make waves anyway? I know we got someone watching in the state of Washington. How do you make waves in Washington? Wherever you're watching today, some of you may be right here in Northern California. You may be here on the West Coast or somewhere else in the country. How are you going to make waves in your area? See, one of the ways I believe that we're going to make waves, we're going to see life words in different cities, in different states, as we do now, but more than just virtually, physically as well. So I'm putting on you, Life Words family, in different states. Some of you have been praying and asking for, one day we want a Life Words campus in our city. It can happen. Amen. You don't have to wait till we get large here in Sacramento. It starts by you making waves right where you are right now. Don't in 2023, don't watch online just by yourself. Ask a friend to watch with you. Send out a mass text to all your friends and family. Say, come over, let's watch My church in Sacramento, California. Let's watch together next Sunday. That's how the church began. Look into the book of Acts. They started out in just small gatherings and grew to one of the greatest movements, not one of the greatest movement in history. So make waves in your city. You in the room, make waves in your neighborhood. Make waves here in Sacramento. Make waves right here at Life Word Church. And the people will see the final result. Amen. Amen. Let's pray. Father in heaven,